Pioche is located on Highway 93 between Ely and Las Vegas. We're at Heritage Park, which is right at the top of Main Street.
Pioche has an incredibly colorful history, full of Wild West stories of gunmen and miners. It's got great legends. We're going to learn more of them right now.
We meet Carol Shanks, a longtime resident of Pioche, for a look at the colorful history of the town.
Oh, you're very
Pioche was notorious as the roughest, most lawless town in the West, and it deserved the reputation. In the years 1871 and 1872, 60% of all the killings in the state of Nevada were in the Pioche area. Of course, there are legends that go along with that. One story from 1871 describes a lawyer from Illinois arriving with his young wife, and in the time it took for her to get from the stage to the hotel, she saw a deputy sheriff shoot 3 men on 3 different street corners. A few minutes later, she was back on that stage heading east.
You mentioned that there was an opera house.
Oh yeah, that Thompson Opera House. It's one of the few in the state, and so the kinder element, the gentler folk, would try to get opera houses in. They'd put on these beautiful plays, operas, and then the town would use it also for dances. They used to have dancing in there. They had a wonderful floor. It actually had springs under the floor.
Oh, fun.
This beautiful hardwood floor with springs under it, so that when you danced, you know, it would kind of bounce along with you.
And now this building's got this great bell.
That bell, that's the old fire hall.
Oh.
There used to be, you know, there a lot of these old towns, their history was built around the bars, the bordellos, and the firemen.
Now, I read about these fires. Why were there so many fires?
Well, part of the reason why was because the miners would have these little pot-bellied stoves.
Yeah.
They'd throw their ashes out.
Just in the backyard?
Just in the backyard, and of course a lot of them had dynamite out there too. Eventually, all this ash building up, the dynamite, off it would go.
You'd think that the first time that happened, the rest of the guys would figure it out.
You'd think they would, yes.
Yeah, if I was a fireman back then, I would have tried to institute put a bucket of water in your backyard.
In your backyard and
campaign,
keep it going, right.
And put your ashes in the bucket every night.
Put your ashes in the bucket every night. And this is another old interesting building, this old Masonic building.
You can really see where they use the brick and then they use the other rocks.
The facade, right.
It's like they put a new face on it.
And of course there is new brick on this, but and at least new paint on the bricks to make them look more like the old originals. But look at the bolts that they use.
Oh, yeah.
Big solid pieces of metal.
Right, and that's, in the early days, that was one of the ways to stress up the buildings. They would put those big bolts on there.
Well, they actually painted the metal strip to look like bricks on the front.
At least on part of it, right. Here's our old courthouse, one of the more famous sites in Pioche, called the $1 Million Courthouse.
Did they spend $1 million building it?
Well, they didn't actually spend $1 million on it. It ended up costing $1 million because of graft.
Uh-oh.
Remember graft? But the bricks were hauled. They were made in Wales and then hauled around the Cape Horn, South America, and then hauled by mule and railroad from San Francisco.
Well, that sounds expensive enough by itself.
So it was expensive, but you know, $1 million in those days was like $1 billion now.
So what happened?
But because, well, again, selling shares, people having to get their little bit out, inflated prices, all ended up in, and you can go in and see, and a lot of famous people, a lot of famous trials were held here, and then people would come down. The old jailhouse back behind is a wonderful thing to see. There's an old cot in there, leg irons.
Wow.
There's an old restroom, old outhouse. There is a new outhouse you can use, but there's the old outhouse has all been fixed up and you can see it. And then when these famous people would come, judges and all that, they would stay in this wonderful old hotel, the Mountain View Hotel.
That's a great old building.
Which is kind of, needs a little repair, as you can see.
It's got a great look to it.
It is a beautiful look, isn't it?
Didn't Herbert Hoover spend time here?
Yes, Herbert Hoover actually stayed here, along with most of Nevada's early time governors and senators, and lots of very famous people stayed here. See the beautiful view here. This is one of the One of the joys of living in Pioche is this gorgeous view. You can see off in the distance Mount Wilson there.
Little sprinkle of snow on it.
Yes, the one with the snow. Looks like it's been frosted. Then that beautiful valley. That's called the Patterson Wash and Patterson Valley. And then as you come closer to us, you can see those old stacks down there.
Yeah.
That's the old Osborne Mill. It was built around 1885, I think. And when they finally actually started milling the ore, they would carry the ore down and mill it down in that place down there. And that was running till about, probably the 1940s.
It's a pretty elaborate little system.
It was kind of a neat little system.